Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. Emily Bronte, Wuthering Heights.
Two souls are sometimes created together and in love before they're born. F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Beautiful and Damned. Prologue. You trudge up the hill along the overgrown path that cuts through the graveyard. The sky is gray, the air thick. It's quiet, the kind of quiet that comes only before a storm. You find the headstone, wipe away the grime with your hand until the face is visible. Megan Tucker, beloved daughter and sister. You unfold your lawn chair, position it facing the stone. You notice a bundle of dead flowers, the skin of wilted balloons, and it angers you that the groundskeeper hasn't maintained this plot or any of the others on this patch of gloom on the outskirts of this depressed Nebraska town. You extract the small laminated rectangle from your special trinket box, her driver's license. You stare at the pretty face, the infectious smile, the sparkle in her eyes. You close your eyes and you think of her, and you remember every single moment. Of course you do. You never forget your first kill.
Year 1, May 1st, 1992. Chapter 1. Jules and Quinn didn't know that today would be an anniversary they will never celebrate.
You're going to the concert?
Quinn asks. Why do you say it like that? Jules replies.
I don't know. You just don't seem like you.
I'm into grunge music. Jules interrupts. What? Because I don't wear flannel when it's ass hot outside and actually comb my hair and I'm not like intellectual, I can't go see one of your precious bands? Shh. The study hall monitor hisses in their direction. The stern woman patrols the cafeteria like she's making rounds in the mess hall of a penitentiary, not a high school. Jules narrows her eyes at Quinn. She's not sure why she cares what he thinks. If she's honest, she shouldn't be talking to Quinn Riley. Her friends would not approve. But somehow she started looking forward to the 1 hour of forced confinement together in 11th grade study hall every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
You don't have to be mean about it,
Quinn says softly, like he's withholding a smile. Are you going? She asks.
To the concert?
No, to the circus. For someone who seems surprisingly smart, always with his nose in a book, scribbling something in a journal, Quinn can be slow on the uptake.
No. I need to watch my little brother tonight.
On a Friday night? He nods, turns back to the paperback he's creased and is holding in one hand. Jules has seen him with his brother. At Godfather's Pizza after the game that one time, Jules was with her group. The football players and palm squatters and pastel-wearing popular kids. Her boyfriend Brad called Quinn's family the Fritos, since his mom works at the potato chip factory. Called Quinn's brother a freak. She remembers the encounter mostly because she noticed how kind Quinn was to his brother. The kid wore oversized headphones, like to block out noise, and tilted his head funny. She remembers Quinn's mom looking tired. Old, but pretty. One of Brad's friends said, "With those tits, she should be riding a pole, not making potato chips." And the guys all laughed. "What you readin'?" she asks in a sing-song voice, purposefully needling him. Quinn raises his eyes to hers. If she didn't spend 3 hours a week bantering with him, she might be intimidated by the glower. The smoldering eyes under the wisps of his unruly dark hair. The lips that she sometimes imagines touching hers.
It's called A Separate Peace,
he whispers. What's it about?
It's about a guy who just wants some peace while he's reading during study hall.
He shakes his head, relents.
It's about two friends at a boarding school